the way, did you wear that shirt last time?
I don't wear shirts. Welcome back to the Layman's Guide to Whiskey with Adam and Max. I'm Adam.
I'll be Max this time.
I think that's a good idea. Today, we're going to talk about the Old Forester 1897 Bottled in Bond. So, you heard us talk a little bit about this. If you watched our episode on Bottled in Bond 101, you should go watch that. But today, we're going to go a little more in depth. So, Max.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember anything about Old Forester?
I've been drinking, so no.
Great. Old Forester was the first brand of whiskey sold exclusively in the bottle. That seems second nature to us these days. But at one point in time, glass bottles that were solid and didn't shatter and could be mass produced were a novel technology. They were the best thing since sliced bread before sliced bread.
Yeah, everything came in the barrel. And, you know, those old movies that you watch where you walk into a saloon and the guy goes back to that barrel and fills it up. And that's kind of how it was. Even with pharmacists, you go to the pharmacist because it was medicinal, and he would go to the back and fill up your bottle, your prescription, and come back out. You didn't always know what was in the barrel. I mean, who made it? How was it made? Age statements weren't a thing. Was it real whiskey? How much water did they add?
Go back and watch Bourbon 101, Rye 101, Bottle 101, any informational thing you've ever heard about whiskey. All these rules that we talk about, those are pretty relatively new. Most of them were not codified until after Prohibition. So people spent over a decade not knowing how to make things or not paying attention to how things were done and forgetting things, trying a whole new generation. And then the government's coming along trying to define them so that they can be solid going forward. Hell, the Safe Food and Drug Administration Act was left open the definition of whiskey to the president at the time. So our definition of whiskey technically just comes from the president sitting down going, this is what I think whiskey should be.
And we had to have a definition because eventually it was becoming way too wide. And people
dogs and cats getting married, things going crazy, slippery slips. Anyway, back to Old Forester. Old Forester is a brand started by Gavin Brown of Brown-Forman fame. If you are familiar with Brown-Forman at all, it's probably because you've heard of the most popular American whiskey of all time.
Hey, Jack, how you doing?
Good to see you, old number 7. This is their bourbon. As many people will talk to you about, Jack Daniel's not technically a bourbon. Despite meeting all of the qualifications, it goes through an extra process.
Now,
and
to be fair, they didn't want to be bourbon.
They didn't want to be bourbon.
They want to be their own category.
Yeah. And they put
Tennessee
it through
whiskey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a knock at all.
No.
But anyway, bourbon. So their mash bill is very heavy on the corn. And if you are a fan of another one of the Brown-Forman products, you'll be very familiar with Woodford Reserve.
Right.
There's always a lot of debate inside the community because Old Forester is technically the exact same mash bill as Woodford Reserve. Different distilleries. Woodford has its own pot stills. There's always the rumor that goes around that some of the distillate for Woodford is distilled at the distillery with Old Forester. I'll let you taste it and figure out whether or not you think that. It's up to you.
Can't say anything.
Old Forester actually has quite a few different expressions. Their most common places are 86 proof. You'll see that around. They also have 100 proof. But they've also, in the past several years, been releasing what's been known as their Whiskey Row collection. They are bottles,
which is great,
that are phenomenal. It says a little apart, but they're all dated with a year, meant to commemorate specific years in history for bourbon whiskey and Old Forester history.
Right.
They have their
there's a 1920.
The 1920 cask strength. There's the 1890, which celebrates that first release of them being specifically bottled. There's also the 1897, which celebrates the year of the Bottled in Bond Act. So first you start bottling your whiskey, then you start needing to reassure people that what is in that bottle is actually what it says it is. Hence, you team up with the U.S. government to create the Bottled in Bond Act. So they stick a tax stamp on it and assure everyone that what is in that bottle is exactly what it says.
So, and one of the interesting things is that this is one of the brands, because there's only 10, they continued making through Prohibition, which is why they do the 1920s one, because the 1920s one, basically they're releasing it at cask strength because it's supposed to simulate what they would have done at that time, where you would send in your cask samples to your pharmacist, then he would choose what barrel he wanted. So kind of the same idea. Also, 1897, right up there. I really like it.
Also, Old Forester, for other fun facts, is the official bourbon of the Kentucky Derby.
No, I didn't
So if you
realize
go to
that.
the Kentucky Derby, the official bourbon there is Old Forester, and all your mint juleps are made with Old Forester. So a lot of history around this bottle. What's actually in the bottle?
I prepped.
We're old pros. So again, I always start with the nose. This one, at this point, we can all assume there are certain things that go into bourbon. They're always going to say there's always that vanilla. There's always that oak. What I like about this one is I get a lot of toasted orange.
Right.
There is an orange. Is also that orange pith? Like
It's not
it's
orangey.
Yeah.
It's the orange. It's the peel.
there's a little bit of that
pith,
bitterness that goes
oil.
along with it.
Right. You definitely get that toastiness to it.
But I also get like
Almost marmalade-y.
and sometimes I don't know how much is in my own head, but like I know this is a heavier corn recipe than some bourbons, and I can
round.
sense that sweetness
Yeah.
already on the nose.
Yeah, I always get like that, orangey. We're talking about the same thing, but very much holiday, because for holidays, I think, the cinnamon and the baking spices and that dry
redolent
orange.
of baking spices, some cloves, some cinnamon.
Right.
It just fades into that vanilla sweetness at that end, though.
Right.
It melds. There's a finish on Old Forester that I always associate with Old Forester because it tastes like that vanilla corn feel.
Right.
And it sits around. Like that's the nice thing about the 100 proof, the bottle and bond for me, is
It's
that
gonna last.
it
You
lasts
taste it.
longer and it's clean. You can feel the saliva on the sides of your mouth as that distillate just kind of settles in.
There's the thing also about just talking about proofs is it counterintuitively, I find myself getting less tipsy, a little slower when I'm drinking bonded or higher. Lighter than that, I drink it too fast. I mean, let's just be honest. So I need something with a lot of flavor that makes me remind me, shut up, sit down,
Drink
take your
responsibly.
time. Yes. Meaning always.
This is one of those bottles that I'm really happy that they came out with. Old Forester is something that's easily overlooked in terms
Way
of
too often.
flashier bottles. And
It's not something anybody ever calls, honestly. And we end up recommending it all the time. It's a great whiskey.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I like your hat.
Why, thank you. Made it myself. Out of camels.
You want to hear more about camel hat making? Hit that subscribe button. And if you want to try on Max's hat, you can visit him where?
Chestnut Club in Santa Monica. Come on Tuesdays. We do a whiskey tasting. We talk. We drink. It's fun.
And if you want to hear or read more of my words on whiskey, you can go to bottledandbondla.com. And until next time, cheers.